Let's get ready to make some chili. I am so excited. I have never made chili, and today in the next Ninja Foodi Challenge, I'm going to make some chili because I want some chili. I've wanted chili forever. But now that I've got a device that theoretically can make some chili really easy, we're going to do some chili. And I have scoured the web, and there are so many different recipes that you can do. It's amazing. And so I have picked and choose and said, okay, I'm not going to go simple. I'm not going to just take some beef and some beans and a spice and put it together and make it. I'm going for it. So today I have a ton of ingredients. They're all just little spices in there, so no big deal. But let me show you what it is that we're working with today. We have got a ton of ingredients to work with today, and so everything starts with the bean, and most of them call for one bean, occasionally two. One of them I saw three, and I said, yeah, we're having chili, we're going to put in some beans. So we're going to go with kidney beans, we're going to go with pinto beans, we're going to go with some black beans. Next time I will get black beans in the dry variety so that I am working with a raw actual bean without any influence as to whatever the manufacturer wanted. Then we've got all kinds of spices to work with. So we're going to, well, this isn't a spice, but we're going to go with some diced green chilies, because why not? And this is just the mild one, so no hot one for this one. We're going to go with a whole red onion, a whole can of tomato paste, and then various quantities of all of this stuff. So we've got some ground cumin going on. We've got onion powder. We've got garlic powder. We got chipotle chili pepper. We've got oregano. We've got smoked paprika. We're going to put in a red bell pepper, a jalapeno pepper, a little bit of Worcestershire sauce, and we're going to go with some diced tomatoes with garlic and beer, because I saw some people put in beer, and it's like, yeah, why not put some beer in there? And then some beef broth to put in for the liquid. So let's get all this stuff together, and then yeah, ground beef, which is not yet out, and I'm going with the 93% fat-free kind. You can go with various stuff. I just did that because that was on sale and I won't get a lot of grease, so we'll try that. And garlic, some spoonfuls of garlic. So that will round out all of the ingredients as I keep hitting the camera here. And let's start dicing and chopping and get to it. While Judy is chopping up the ingredients, I have mixed the dry ingredients, the spices. So I'm going to give you a verbal of what I put in here, and then I will put the ingredients on the page. So 2 teaspoons of cumin, 2 teaspoons of onion powder, 2 teaspoons of garlic powder, 1 teaspoon of oregano, 1 teaspoon of smoked paprika, and 2 tablespoons of chili powder. Now, how I came up with this, like I said, I scoured the web, and everybody kind of had the same ingredients, but they had different quantities and stuff. I've never made chili. I don't use spices. So I am winging it. So I looked at probably up to a dozen different recipes and said, okay, let me sort of take the median and let me level it out so that I'm not using a tablespoon and a half. It's like either I'm using a teaspoon or a couple teaspoons. Let me just try and make it simple and then figure out how it came out and then adjust it from there, and that'll be version 2. And I say version 2 because that's what I do for a living, is work with computers. So there's always a version 2 and version 3. So I talk in versions in there. So this is not anybody's specific recipe. It's now my recipe as a combination of all the different things that I saw on the web, and we'll just see how this thing comes out. So Let's finish chopping up the ingredients here and rinsing the beans, and then we should be ready to start the cooking process. And Sherlock, as has been the norm, is just waiting for something to drop on the floor, and you can bet as soon as that hits the floor, he'll be right there to scoop it up for us. The red peppers and the jalapeno and the onions have all been chopped up. The beans have been rinsed, so we are ready to start the cooking process. So I am going to take a few minutes to go on the saute setting and brown up the ground beef. I'm going to use 1.5 pounds of ground beef. Most people use 1 pound, a couple use 2 pounds, one used 1.5 pounds. I bought 3 pounds, so I can do 1.5 pounds now, and in my version 2 I can do 1.5 pounds there, and I'm consistent on that. After I saute and brown up the ground beef, then I'm going to put in the onions and the jalapeno pepper for a couple minutes and let that heat up. And then once I'm finished with that, then a little bit of beef broth. We've decided to go with 1 cup of beef broth and a 12-ounce beer, which is 1.5 cups. That'll give us 2.5 cups of liquid. We'll throw in the spices, stir it around, and then as the last item in there, throw in the tomato paste and the tomatoes. I was reading some stuff in doing all this that said don't stir in the tomatoes, because if the tomatoes get on the bottom, then they will tend to burn, which will be detrimental, which I have experienced. So that will be the last thing to go in. Just put it on top, close it down, and go for the pressure cook. So everything is subject to change, but that's the plan. So let's see how it gets executed. So the meat has been browned, the onions and the pepper have been added, and I'm stirring that around for just a couple of minutes. That's what it looks like. I'm now going to then add the liquid, the beans, the spices, and give that all a stir, the chilies, and then finally add the tomato paste and the tomatoes, and then we're going to close the lid and pressure cook it. I have put in the peppers, the 1.5 cups of beef broth, and what you can see right here is the max line. I have way filled this thing up. I am at the limit. So the max line is here. The last thing to put in is going to be the tomatoes and the tomato paste. And if nothing else, this thing looks like Christmas in here. I mean, it is so colorful in there. And then the other thing is, man, did I need arm strength.
Can I put this in?
Sure. Did I need arm strength to make this work? So I'm using my handy dandy Costco giant one, and oh man, it required that. So we're going to close this thing up. We're going to cook it for 20 minutes, and then we're going to go with 10 minutes of slow release and then a quick release, and we're going to find out what we got. 20 minutes, 10 minutes of slow release, and it is ready for the unveil. It smells good. Whether it's going to taste good, anybody's guess. So you will know in just a few minutes. And there she is. And the interesting thing that I'm seeing is that the tomatoes did not settle down into it like a spaghetti sauce would have normally done. And the pinto beans look exactly like the pinto beans as they came out of the bag. So yeah, it's a little bit curious at this point, almost like maybe there wasn't enough liquid to kind of get it going. But let's give it a stir and see how it looks. Wah, 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 wah. Alright, so while it looks kind of interesting and it is somewhat edible. The beans did not have enough liquid to soak it in, so we're adding more liquid and we're going to repressure fry it here to hopefully get the beans to soak in that liquid. I mean, the taste was, you know, had some stuff, but the beans were a little crunchy in there, so definitely needs more liquid, which I was kind of thinking anyway, but I officially know now. So I'll get back to you. So after adding another 2 1/4 cups of beef broth, we did a recook on it, which was a full 20 minutes plus a 10-minute slow release, and now you can see that it is completely covered in liquid, and so that can't be a bad thing. And so now let's stir it up and hope for the best. If it quacks like a duck and looks like a duck, then it must be duck, and we got chili. So yeah, it just absolutely looks like chili in there now. So definitely did not have enough liquid in there the first time, so I will revise the recipe. So now let's spoon it out and see what it tastes like. How cool is this? The wife says, hey, I got a perfect bowl for your chili. So it not only hopefully tastes good, but it looks fancy too. So let's taste it and put a little cheese on there and sour cream, and the cornbread is ready. So woo, everything's coming together finally. It's verdict time. And the verdict is it needs some tweaks. It was a really good first attempt, no doubt. There were a couple of problems. It needed more liquid. And why did it need more liquid? Well, I finally figured out what the problem was. Most of the recipes I was looking at said that they were using a canned bean. Well, a canned bean is pre-soaked. So the fact that 2/3 of my beans were dry beans and were not pre-soaked, it needed the liquid in order to soak them to make them soft. So that was the first problem. The second problem is that when you get a 1 pound can of beans, it's got liquid in there, so it's not actually a pound of beans like I put in. So I had way more beans and they weren't pre-soaked, so it led to all of the problems in there. So the first tweak I would make, if you were going to use a dry bean and you were going to use the same thing, is that I would go with probably about 5 cups of broth, which was essentially that whole, minus about 8 ounces, that whole beef broth thing. And there was a second thought that went, the second thought is that because I went with the 3 beans and the bag of beans and everything, it made a boatload of chili. I mean, a boatload. It's filled the whole pot in here. I mean, I can't even fathom how much it is. Well, it's a 6.5 quart pot. So, I mean, I probably have, after us eating, 5 quarts of chili left. So I would probably cut that recipe in half if I weren't trying to feed an army, to make it more manageable. I mean, I definitely like some leftovers, but I'm not sure I need leftovers for like 2 weeks in there. But when you serve it, that's when we salted it, and putting on some salt gave it the extra flavor that it needed in there, and then sprinkled cheese on it and put some sour cream, and yeah, it was good. So the main problem that I had was the beans weren't pre-soaked and I didn't put in enough liquid to soften them up. So you got 2 resolutions to that. So there will definitely be a version 2. Version 1 was a reasonable success and taught me some things, and that's why this video will be out there, because you don't learn by always seeing what works. Sometimes you learn by seeing what doesn't work and why it doesn't work. So if that liquid isn't above the beans, and your beans are not pre-soaked, they're dry, you don't have enough liquid in there. Those beans have to suck in that liquid. So that's what I got out of here. And I also got some decent meals too. So until next time.